Chapter 3. Soon Jacob and I were out on the lonely snow-covered hills. Although the wind was quieter, it was still barely cold. The sky was starless. The only noise in that wild, empty place was the sound of our footsteps in the snow. Jacob did not speak. He walked silently along in front of me, holding the lantern. I followed with my gun under my arm. I was silent too because I was thinking about the old man. I could still hear his voice. I remembered every word of our conversation. In fact, I can still remember it today. Suddenly, Jacob stopped and pointed with the lantern. That's your road. Keep that stone wall on your right, and you can't go wrong. This is the old coach road, then, I asked him. That's right, he growled. And how far am I from the signpost? About 3 miles. Just follow the road. You can't miss it. I took out my wallet and he became more helpful. It's a good road, he said, for walkers, but it was too steep and narrow for coaches. Be careful. The wall is broken near the signpost. It was never mended after the accident. What accident? The night coach went off the road. It fell over the edge of the road and down into the valley. It's a long way down, 50 feet or more. It's a very bad piece of road just there. How terrible, I cried. Were many people killed? They were all killed. 4 passengers were found dead and the driver died the next morning. How long ago did this happen? 20 years. My master has been a broken man since that day. His only son was one of the passengers. That's why he shuts himself away in that lonely place. The wall is broken near the signpost? Thank you. I'll remember that. Good night. I pushed a silver coin into his hand. Good night, sir, and thank you, said Jacob. He turned and walked away. I watched the light of his lantern until it disappeared. Then I began to walk along the old coach road. This was not difficult, although it was dark. I could still see the stone wall at the edge of the road. I'm safe, I told myself. But I felt very lonely and a little afraid. I tried to forget my loneliness and fear. I sang and whistled. I thought about my dear wife, and for a short time I felt better. But the night was cold. Although I walked quickly, I was unable to keep warm. My hands and feet were like ice. My chest felt icy cold, and I had difficulty in breathing. My gun seemed terribly heavy. I was very tired and began to feel ill. I had to stop and rest for a moment. Just then I saw a circle of light, a long way away, like the light of a lantern. At first, I thought that Jacob had come back again to make sure I was all right. Then I saw a second light beside the first. I realized that they were the two lights of a coach. But how strange, I thought, to use this dangerous old road. Jacob said nobody had used it since that terrible accident. Then I thought again, have I walked past the signpost in the dark? Is this the night coach that goes to Dwolin after all? Meanwhile, the coach came along the road. It was moving very fast and noiselessly over the snowy road. I saw the huge, dark shape of the coach with its driver on top and its 4 fine gray horses. I jumped forward and shouted and waved. The coach went past me. And for a moment I thought it was not going to stop, but it did stop. The driver did not look at me. The guard seemed to be asleep. Everyone was silent and still. I ran up to the coach. Nobody moved to help me. I had to open the door of the coach for myself with my stiff, frozen fingers. It's empty, I thought. But there were three travelers in the coach. None of them moved or looked at me. They all seemed asleep. I got in and sat down. The inside of the coach seemed very cold, even colder than outside. The air inside the coach smelled heavy, damp, and dead. I looked around at the other passengers and tried to start a conversation. It's very cold tonight, I said politely to the passenger who was sitting opposite me. He turned his head towards me slowly but did no answer. I think winter is really here, I continued. The passenger was sitting in a dark corner and I could not see his face, but I could see his eyes. He was looking straight at me, but still he did not say a word. Why doesn't he answer? I thought, but I did not feel really angry. I was too tired and too cold for that. I was still stiff with cold and tiredness, and the strange damp smell inside the coach was making me feel sick too. I was frozen to my bones and trembling with cold. I turned to the passenger on my left. May I open the window? I asked politely. He did not speak. He did not move. I repeated my question more loudly, but he still did not answer. Then I became impatient. I tried to open the window and I saw the glass. It was covered with dirt. My God, they haven't cleaned this glass for years, I said to myself. I looked around the coach and suddenly I thought I understood the reason for the strange smell. Everything was dirty, old, and damp. The floor was almost breaking away under my feet. I turned to the third passenger. This coach is falling to pieces, I said to him. I expect the coach company are using this one while the usual coach is being repaired. He moved his head slowly and still looked at me in silence. I shall never forget that look. I can still remember it now. His eyes burned with a wild, unnatural light. His face was greenish white, like a dead man, I said to myself. Then I saw that his bloodless lips were pulled back from his huge white teeth. I trembled with fear and horror. Then I looked again at the passenger opposite me. He too was staring at me. His face was deathly white, and his eyes shone with an unearthly light. I looked again at the passenger on my left. I saw, oh, how can I describe him? I saw the face of a dead man. All three passengers were dead. A greenish light shone from their terrible faces. Their damp hair smelled of death. Their clothes smelled of the graveyard. I knew that their bodies were dead. Only their terrible shining eyes were alive, and they were all staring at me, threatening me. I gave a scream of horror. I had to get out of that terrible place. I threw myself at the door and tried desperately to open it. Just then the moon came out from behind a cloud. In its cool, silvery light, I suddenly saw everything very clearly. I saw the signpost pointing along the road like a warning finger. I saw the broken wall at the edge of the road. I saw the frightened horses on the edge of a steep drop. I saw the valley 50 feet below us. The coach shook like a ship at sea. There were screams of men and of horses. There was a tearing crash, a moment of terrible pain, and then darkness. And that, my friends, was chapter 3 of this story that you are enjoying in order to get ready for Halloween. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned because soon, pretty soon, you will enjoy chapter 4, the final chapter of this story. In the meantime, thank you very much for being here. And I hope to see you again pretty soon. Have a nice day. Bye bye.